The Tax Wall Street Party, transportation. And the best thing I come up with is it's been sabotaged. I want to give a little overview. Current state of the inner city passenger rail. We want to meet some of the Republican, especially Tea Party reactionaries that came in and brought some of this upon us. Will Trump be any different? That's the question we want to pose. And how can we make this better? We don't want it to just be a beat-up session on the U.S. rail infrastructure. How can we bring about a better tomorrow? The American Infrastructure Report Card, the American Society of Civil Engineers, they released a report card discussing the state of infrastructure in the United States. 2009. I don't know if you could all see this clearly, but it is not good. A D rating. At that time, you needed $2 trillion to bring the infrastructure of the United States up to a state of good repair. And you can see here we have bridges C. These are things you are all involved with every second of the day. Rail is a C-. It actually is one of the better ones. Schools, the future of America, D. The transit systems, this is a big one here. If anyone's from DC, anyone from Washington, the DC Metro is close to an F. That's failure. We've had people die this year from smoke inhalation. The maintenance is not being done. There's no money to do things. They're not replacing the rail cars. The tracks aren't getting fixed properly. And that's about the closest transit system to an F you'll see right now. So if you do ride the DC Metro, please be careful. It is extremely dangerous. Here's the most current grades. So we went from 2009 to 2013, and we've gotten worse. D+. We're now up to $3.6 trillion to get up to a state of good repair. They added some more categories. We have ports now. You see, actually, rail has gotten somewhat better. It's about second best, if I can use that word. Just want to go through some general specifications or categories of high-speed rail in America. There's conventional rail, that's 79 miles per hour. This is essentially, say, 60 to 70% of the rail infrastructure of the United States. The max speed is 79 miles per hour. That's basically somewhere between the late 19th century, at best the early 20th century. This is your current standards right now. Emerging high-speed rail, this is 90 to 110 miles an hour. You're going to see we almost had some of these, but we'll kind of get through what happened to them. We don't really have too much of this right now. High-speed rail regional, this is 150 miles per hour. This is essentially Northeast Corridor, the Acela Express. Does anyone know, what do you think the 150 mile per hour territory in the United States, how many miles would you say, if anyone had to take a guess? It's not zero. It's not zero.
100.
100? Anybody else? 100? No. It's actually 35 miles. 35 miles north of New Haven, between New Haven and Providence. That's 35 miles of 150 mile per hour territory. That is it. That's the best we can do. China, 12,000 miles currently, and growing. And high-speed rail express, we currently don't have any of this. This is going to actually change, though, in the next 2 years. New Jersey is going to have 20 miles of 160 mile per hour territory, so not really great. We need it, if you're doing high-speed rail, you need long stretches of 150, 160, 180, some places 200 almost. Now, the 2009, we had some promise. We had Obama and Congress came out with the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, somewhere between $700, $800 billion toward infrastructure. $8 billion in grants for intercity passenger rail, about 1%. Focus on high-speed rail. Now, here at the Tax Wall Street Party, we're calling for $5 trillion immediately. Immediately. You saw those numbers before, $3 trillion to get to a state of good repair, so we want to take that money. 0% long-term maturities issued by the Federal Reserve. This isn't deficit spending. It's not going to come against the budget. The Federal Reserve gave Wall Street $27 trillion, 0%. We just want to start right now at 5, and we get 30 million jobs from that. Now, the rise of the Tea Party movement. This is where 2009 got a little dicey. Everyone knows this face. He's pretty popular in Ohio. Kasich. Wisconsin. Everyone know this smart-looking gentleman? That's Scott Walker. Now, just one thing on Kasich. On the board, a senior executive of Lehman Brothers. He's not the common guy he poses himself out to be. Big union buster. Wisconsin, Scott Walker. Big union buster as well. When they asked him in a debate, are you prepared to fight ISIS? And how are you prepared to fight ISIS? Because I fought unions. And that's how I'm ready to fight ISIS. This is crazy. This one's a little unknown. Anyone know who this is? Rick Scott. Rick Scott in Florida. He's a creature of CSX freight transportation. If you look at everybody on his board from CSX, he represents the corporate welfare. New Jersey, we all know this, this horrific gentleman, Chris Christie. Yeah, shouldn't say gentleman there. So first, our first sample we're going to look at, the Ohio 3C corridor. That's Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati via Dayton. Now this was going to be conventional rail, 79 miles per hour. Nothing's too great. But Ohio was to get $400 million for 258-mile route. Like I said, conventional 79 miles per hour, connects 40 colleges, 12 distressed counties. All that money was rejected by Kasich. Passenger rail is not in Ohio's future. The train is dead. He gloated over this comment. This was something he liked. He loved it. Some of these areas, there's no way to get between some of these areas of Cleveland, Columbus, Dayton. There's no interconnectivity. Wisconsin Talgo, this is Walker. Now this is currently what the Talgo is it's a form of high-speed, it's a company that makes high-speed equipment, and they're Spanish. They made a deal with Wisconsin that they were going to provide equipment for a burgeoning high-speed rail corridor. The deals were signed, everything was ready, 2009, Walker comes in. The cars have been built, they're there, they're sitting there. If you go to Wisconsin, they're just sitting there doing nothing. They're all tied up in court right now. Walker comes in. State of Wisconsin gets $800 million. We're going to connect the two biggest cities, Milwaukee, Madison. Upgrade the line from Milwaukee to Chicago to 110 mile per hour trackage. Federal grants cover the entire project. There was nothing that had to come out of the state budget. Spanish builder Talgo built manufacturing plants in Wisconsin to assemble these train sets. 100% rejected by Walker. He says, I don't want this money, get it out of here. All this stuff is already in place. Quick scorecard. Republican governors in the Midwest reject $1.2 billion in federal grants for no reason. What they cite is not that these systems aren't good enough. They are not. The vision is we want something better than that. We want some high-speed rail. We want Mag Lev, these like this. But there's something. And their grievance is that government cannot create jobs. They do not say that this is too slow. This doesn't go where we want it. Their big reason for rejecting these deals was because government cannot create jobs. And this goes to show you the mentality of the current Republican Party. This is where things really get ugly. Florida high-speed rail. This was going to be your first high-speed rail corridor in the United States. Something to be proud of. Phase 1, Tampa to Orlando, down the I-4 corridor. Anyone drive down I-4? It's a nightmare. Anybody? I'm from Tampa. I know all it's an absolute nightmare. Downtown to downtown, under 1 hour. Estimated 6 million rides per year. 2011 system received $2.4 billion. The $1.2 billion from the rejected Midwest was going to Florida. Obama went all in on this. He said, this is going to be the first corridor that we're going to make a name here for high-speed rail. Construction of the line to begin in 2011. You would have already had it already. Some of you would have ridden it already. Scott rejects this. He comes in and during the Tea Party uprising in 2009, 2010. He originally says, I'm going to pass this. When they asked him, you're going to get a lot of flack because you're running on fiscal conservatism. He said, no, this is a good project. He comes in, he rejects it. He says there's going to be too many cost overruns. The entire project was covered by the $2.4 billion. Like I said, they cited a $300 million potential overrun of construction. If that was the reason for rejecting the $2.4 billion, it's insane. In Florida still, we have the Sunrail project. This is going to be a 60-mile-per-hour commuter rail around the Orlando area. $1.2 billion. Half of that's coming from the Florida budget. Average speed, 30 miles per hour. 5 months later from rejecting the high-speed rail, Scott says, yes, we're going to build this. He picks this. Why? CSX owns the Sunrail corridor. Scott's chief of staff, former executive at CSX, also many other members of his staff. State spends $432 million. They purchase CSX tracks. They purchase the rights to run the commuter rail trains on these tracks. They also have to upgrade tracks. Now that CSX has to divert their traffic, The state of Florida has to pay to upgrade those tracks, to reroute those trains. And CSX doesn't lose rights to these tracks. They can run their trains at nights and weekends. Yearly ridership, under $1 million. This is a big-time overestimate as well. Now, if you take the 6 million to the 1 million, you can see really how disgusting this is. This is just corporate welfare right in your face. I mean, it's unbelievable. We have New Jersey, Chris Christie. The greatest asset for New Jersey is the ability to commute to New York timely, quickly, safely. It's not pharmaceuticals, not there's anything else. It's the ability to get people from Jersey to New York and back quickly. Access to the region's core was an $8.7 billion project to build 2 tunnels, additional tunnels into Penn Station from New Jersey. The idea was to increase the property value of New Jersey up $18 billion, $50 billion in new wages from this. Currently, you only have 2 tunnels that connect New York and New Jersey. They're over 100 years old. They're 104 years old at this point. They're completely falling apart. They suffered Sandy damage. You can't take them offline because if you take one offline, you essentially can't get any kind of trains in there. So they can't fix these things the way that they need to be fixed. Now, if we would have built these tunnels, New Jersey would have dedicated tunnels for New Jersey Transit. And we would have been able to shut down one of the older tunnels, repair it, bring that back online, shut down the other one, and then bring that online. Now you would have 4 tunnels into Penn Station. This would have connected all rail lines into Manhattan from New Jersey, with the exception of Atlantic City. One-seat ride. 97% of all transfers for New Jersey Transit riders would be eliminated. One-seat ride. This just to show you the increase. With the 2 tunnels added, you would have 48 New Jersey Transit trains per hour. Currently, there's 23. So you have a cap of capacity. You've capped that asset because you can't get any more people in. It's already operating at 100% capacity. We talked about how Amtrak needs to replace these. Also part of the project was replacement of a 100-year-old Portal Bridge. You're all riding on this stuff right now. This is all 100-plus years. If you go down even further south, Baltimore to Washington, the tunnels there were built about 7 years after the Civil War. That's part of the Amtrak high-speed rail corridor. Christie, of course, rejects this project. He takes the money. He backstops the highway fund. Now, New Jersey was faced with raising taxes, gas tax. But what he did was take the federal money that was to go to the tunnel project and backstop the highway fund so he wouldn't have to increase taxes for that short period of time. New Jersey Transit also purchased dual-mode locomotives. This goes with the one-seat ride. So if you're in diesel territory, there's no electrification there. The train has a diesel mode and electric mode, so we can go seamlessly. You don't even know it. You're in the same train, right into Penn Station. Now the question is, what we have here was, will Trump be different? Now, he does mention that he believes in this great infrastructure, or beautiful infrastructure, as he says. But how are we going to do it? He wants to cut taxes on the rich. He wants to repeal the estate tax. Top 1%, 11.8% reduction. Top 0.1%, 12.5% reduction in taxes. Bottom 20%, 0.9% reduction. Above the 20% above the bottom, 2.8% reduction. So you're seeing that the most money is going to be cut from the top percentages. He said wages are too high, taxes are too high, wages are too high. This is crazy. If he truly believes in a protective tariff that he says, or some kind of tariff, this would eliminate any need to lower wages. This would defend the American workers' wages. If you weren't competing against slave labor anymore, you would not need to lower wages. That's the point of the tariff. No plan to fund projects. I looked on his website. There's no funding plan. There's no projects. It's just, we're going to build stuff. I don't know where he's going to find all this time between deporting 12 million of the workforce. Where are they going to go? Where's he going to find time to build these great projects of mankind? So now, what does the 21st century look like? And, you hear a lot of opponents of high-speed rail say, oh, we'll destroy all the farms in California if we build high-speed rail. I don't think that's happened in France. It looks pretty good. We have Mag Lev, Japan. This is the future. This is what we need to be looking towards. The Chinese have committed to high-speed rail. We don't need to chase that. It's in some ways an older technology. We can leapfrog them, and we can go right to Mag Lev. We can go from New York to Washington. If the Northeast Mag Lev was built, New York to Washington in 1 hour and 10 minutes. That's remarkable. And we're going to really show you some more of this, and we hope you come tomorrow to our 5th session. And it's time for Alexander Hamilton, the leftist. And we want to show how, through Hamilton's program, we can bring about this infrastructure. And that's going to come from the Federal Reserve. And I want to see what the 21st century looks like, and I hope you guys do too. So thank you for your time. Any questions?
Yeah, why do you think they're doing that? Why do you think that the Republican governors were doing that in each of these different states?
They believe that this should come from the private sector, and that if it doesn't, it's somehow, it's going to be just glut, fat, it's going to be all kinds of bureaucracy. So they believe that the private sector should build these projects. But the problem is we've been waiting for this for decades now. Well, who is going to build these things? Nobody's going to build them. So if we don't provide the impetus from government, who's going to build these projects?
But they rejected government money, public money.
Right.
Can you not explain why they would do that?
Why they would do it? Because they want the private sector to be, they say that there's no reason for this. There's no benefit. There's no
money, right?
No, well, not in that sense. Well, you would think it would be a no-brainer. It doesn't cost them a dime. But they're so committed, and this is the point, why their mentality needs to end, is because they're so committed to that ideal that they won't even take free money, essentially.
But they also didn't want Obama to look good.
That's also part of it, too. But they came to power on the idea of this fiscal conservatism. And if they would say, oh, well, we took this money, it's gonna blow up in their faces
So
somewhere.
how was Chris Christie able to use the federal money for his own?
That's the thing. It's a gray area. And some people had sued for this. It's a very gray area. It's unfortunately not being pursued too heavily, but the fact of the matter is he took the money.
The Republicans keep saying, oh, the government's not creating jobs by blocking it, and then they just get to give money to their cronies.
Yeah, I mean, you can make the case that some of these projects aren't big enough. I'm certainly going to make that case. But there's something. For those areas, there's currently nothing. So
Don't companies take money from the government to build military hardware?
yeah, sure. I mean,
And don't they give that money to the employees? Government money.
as far
The
as
companies that build tanks, weapons.
right. So it comes
Does that
back.
come from the government?
Yeah, it
But
does.
they don't like to take government money.
Well, exactly. Yeah. So the idea that government can't do anything good and somehow we can build an aircraft
If you
carrier.
had a private company willing to build these trains,
They're okay
they
with
come
that.
from the government.
And how are you saying that would be different under Trump?
It's not. Well, the question is he going to do this? How is he going to do this? Where is the tangible program?
How is he going to do what?
How is he going to build his infrastructure? What is his program?
About infrastructure, but he
But what does he say? What are the actual hardcore programs? Is he talking about building the Gateway project? He doesn't mention specifics like that, saying, all right, we want to build 2 more tunnels into Penn Station. We want to replace the Portal Bridge. We want to implement 180 mile per hour trackage in the Northeast. We want to build the Florida project. These things are needed. We want to build Midwest high-speed rail. We want to expedite California high-speed rail. But you don't hear any of that. You just hear, oh, China's got this amazing infrastructure. We're going to have it too because I know how to do things. I know how to make deals. I know how to do all this stuff. But this is some kind of triumph of the will, and I don't see any tangible things. Anybody else? No? Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks.